right, good rising, good afternoon, good evening, beautiful people. This is Matthew coming to you again, episode 10, Day and Night Podcast. We got something different for you. We actually got Marcus in the house. He actually flew in from Atlanta. He's here for our sister's graduation. So it's going to be something different. Again, we got good content for you. As always, like, subscribe, comment. Like I said, I don't care what type of comment, emoji, something. Just say something. Let us know that you're looking, and if you actually like what you're looking at. All right, so
In a world of envy, analyze as these guys looks to see. They clones to the naked eye, the dynamic dude. No pesticides, they organic. Day and nights the podcast. In panoramic in 4K, live streaming on your airwaves. No cliche to downplay. This ain't no child's play. Twin brothers close knit bonding. They wonders of the world, they monsters. The twin Tompkins, brought on only born. They travel the world stomping at the break of dawn daily. The iron's pumping, my brain no brothers, about to bring you their life. Look no further, everybody, cause it's day and night.
Marcus, you're hearing us in ATL. How do you
Yes.
feel so far about it?
Well, it's not the first time. It's like what, my third, maybe fourth time
Yeah.
coming. So I always love the city. I love being around different atmospheres, different from Texas,
Yeah.
dramatically different from Texas. So I love coming to it, seeing the different, sights and all that, and just hanging out with you. So I always look forward to coming to Georgia. I always say Atlanta is one of the cities I would move to if I was to choose to leave Texas. So, it's just something that I always wanted to come and see and do different things every time I come out here.
Yeah. So you like the cigar? The
Yeah,
burn-
I'm a cigar
burn spot
smoker, so I
yesterday?
like that spot you took me to.
Yeah.
What was it, Burn House, right?
Yeah,
Or Burn
Burn House.
Lounge. Yeah, so that's different. I don't even think they have one in San Antonio.
Okay.
So it was good to have that atmosphere. You sit
Yeah.
down, relax, chill,
Yeah.
smoke, just conversate with your people. So I like it a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll get into it. As you all know, most of our topics, I want to say, is controversial, but it's something that actually, I guess, people look at and say, okay, this is something that's important.
Right.
So we all have kids. You have children. I have children. And a couple of conversations I've had before with some of my friends, the topic came up as far as when they turn 18, should they leave
Right.
or should they stay in the home? So I'm kind of on both sides of the fence with this. And I think it's important in the black community that we actually, rear our children the right way. For me, I feel as though when you rear your child, you prepare them for adulthood,
Right. Yeah.
whether if they're going to school or if they're going out into the workforce. For me, it's nothing wrong with playing sports, extracurricular activity, and stuff like that. Some children are athletic, some are gifted as far as academic, and they can actually get a scholarship, academic or athletic. And then you have those that's kind of caught in the middle, that's not really athletic, don't have the academic, grades to actually get a scholarship. So, what do you do with those children? Do you just allow them to just go through school and just basically just do what they have to do to get by, and then when it's time, when they turn 18, they're looking at mom and dad like, okay, so can I stay home?
Right.
And for me, if you're not getting an athletic scholarship or academic scholarship, then I believe they should be prepared for adulthood. And as far as like 15, 16, like Matthew, he's working at 16. He said he didn't want to play sports. He's intelligent as far as academic wise, but he just feels as though school was not for him.
Right.
So I told him, I said, well, if you're not going to go to school, then you definitely should be working. You should be preparing yourself for adulthood, opposed to just going to school, not doing anything. And then when you turn 18, you looking like, well, damn, what I'm going to do?
Right.
And you still home with mom and dad, and things are totally different with us than when we was growing up.
Right.
Things were a lot cheaper but the pay wasn't as good. So it was like you didn't really have to pay for stuff as much, but then you weren't getting paid as much.
Right.
And I actually look at, as far as the generation now, has it a lot tougher because the rent here, I don't know how it is in Texas, but it's ridiculous. If you don't have a roommate and you don't have, I would say, a six-figure job or close to it, it's almost impossible to live on your own. So for these children, teenagers, 17, 18, like I said, they're not going to school. They don't have an athletic scholarship. And then they're kind of left to have these, like, I'm going to say sorry ass jobs, but a job that's not really going to allow them to be independent and live on their own. So for me, as I was saying, I believe that actually rearing the children to prepare them for adulthood responsibility. I think children should be responsible, whether it's chores at home, paying them and them have them pay you back something, but put that money in the savings account to where you're still preparing them for the future. And they're just not graduating high school with just nothing.
Right.
So that's what I feel as though would be good to help with children that's not athletic or academically gifted. All right, so I'm gonna let you say what you got to say, and I got something else to say.
Well, yeah, that was good. I agree on everything you're saying. My approach is probably gonna be a little different because the day and era that we live in, I think technology has a lot to do with it. Because one thing I think you can, like you were saying, as far as they don't have the education or the athleticism to do it, I would say maybe a trade school.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say a trade school, because I think hands-on, ideally, in the era we're in, is probably the best way to go. And I'm not advocating people not to go to college. But I really say you should have kids do like we did in high school, the trade school. I don't know if they even do that anymore, where you had the high school one week, trade the other. So that way they learn a trade. So that way it's more jobs that's going to be available where you can get better income, because welding is something that's never going to go away. Computer technology, technicians. So I would encourage your kids to say, hey, if you're not the college university type or you're not athletic, go to a trade school or have them get into a trade that's going to help them in the workforce. Because that's something that we did when we was in high school and I thought was good. You did masonry, remember? And I did carpentry. Right. And I remember Mom saying, yeah, y'all going to build me a house one day. And we had our cousin was the plumber. Yeah. So I think that's stuff that's going to always be around. So I think we get our kids to be more active. Hey, if college is not for you or if you're not really into sports, pick up a trade, something that's going to be functional, that you're going to be able to get good money and be able to survive off of it. Because I believe 18, and we got, I ain't going to say kicked out, but I always tell everybody we got kicked out. But we was 18, it was more me than you, going a different route. And Mom was like, y'all 18, so y'all grown. So Jay going to come and get y'all. Y'all going to go move to San Antonio, in Texas. Yeah. So I believe 18 is the age you should have your kids move out. Now, granted, if they can't find a job or they're not going to school and they need that financial help, but I give them a timeline. You got 2 years, like Jay did. Remember he told us? You got two alternatives. You're going to the military or you're going to school. And I give y'all a year to do it. And he was serious about that. Right. You wind up going to the military. I went to St. Philip's for a minute, community college. But my point is, if we put some kind of boundaries and standards down, I think that would get the kids to be able to move and kind of push themselves to go a different route. But if you kind of like enable them, and because it's your kid and you feel like, oh, I can't do that to him. Because I had a lady friend, perfect example. Her son is 24 and he still live at home. Right. And he's not working, not going to school. All he does is sit at home and play on the video games. And she complains about him because she comes to work and she's always like, well, my son don't want to do this. He don't want to do that. And I'm like, well, what are you doing to get him to be motivated? Are you putting a fire on his butt and saying, hey, look, you got to do this or you got to get out? Well, he can't do it because he don't have the drive. He's not the smartest guy. He's not athletic, like you said. I said, well, you got to encourage him because right now you're enabling him. You give him the reason to feel like he don't have to because, Mom got my back. So I don't have to go anywhere because Mom going to take care of me. So I told her, your only way you're going to get him out of the house is until you put a fire in him. Like Jay told us and Mom, like, this is your alternative. Because if not, I feel that's part of the problem is we allow our kids to go because we give them that pass. That's my kid. I can't kick them out. Or my daughter, I can't do that to her because where's she going to go? And it's crazy out there,
Right.
which is true. But at some point, they got to have that light to say, look, I got to get real. I got to do this because if not, I'm going to be stuck. And who wants to live at home forever with their parents?
Right.
So that's my perspective on that. So I'm going to kick it back to you, and then I'm going to go, as you know me, I like to tell stories. So I got 2 stories I'm going to give you, but I'm going to let you say what you got to say on that aspect.
Okay, so, I'm the agenda person
Right.
and a conspiracy theorist.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because for me, like you said, I was talking to someone, this was when I was in the military, and same thing, her son was like 24, 25, and she was still basically making all the decisions for him. And she was like calling him while we was in class and like, well, no, you got to do this and do that. And I looked at her, I was like, so how old is your son? She's like, he's 24. And I said, so why are you making decisions for him? Well, he's not at that point to where he's able to make those decisions.
Right.
And I was like, so when do you feel as though he's going to get to that point? And she's like, well, when I feel as though he is. I said, but to me, you're handicapping him because he's always going to depend on mom.
Right.
And he's not going to take that step to be responsible because he know mom is going to make decisions for him. And it was actually a friend of mine, she got upset because her son was getting in trouble and stuff like that. Now, this is my opinion. She got upset because I said, well, it's kind of your fault. And she's like, how is this my fault? I said, so what was you doing between 13 and 17? That's like the most important age for males, because the testosterone is kicking in. So they need guidance and mentorship. And she was like, well, he's a child, he's a teenager, so why should I actually have to, I'm not going to hold him responsible or make him work and stuff. I said, well, now you're catching the back end of it because you didn't do those things when he was that age. And now you're trying to do it now, and you're trying to play catch up. And she got pissed. She was like, you don't know what you're talking about, and who the hell are you to tell me that I raised my son wrong? I said, I'm just telling you, I'm a male, so I know, you know the stuff that we was doing.
Right, yeah.
And like you said, I think Jay kind of saved us because he came and got us right when we was at that point.
Yeah, because that's why mom told us to leave, because we was doing things, hanging out, not going, well, I wasn't going to school that much, but sitting at home, drinking, going to play video games with Don and them. So, yeah, I just believe that you can keep your kids at home. Again, you got to give them a reason that they're there. Like, look, you're staying here, but you're going to do something productive. You're not just going to sit around free lunch and just chill because I'm your parent and you feel it's an entitlement because you my dad. You supposed to take care of me because I hear that all the time. No, that's not it. You want to be an adult. This is part of adult life, is being responsible and getting out there and making a living. Because I work with a lot of young cats at my job. It's a manufacturing company. And this one dude, he said, I'm just working because my mom made me, and I don't want to work, man. My mom's supposed to take care of me. She's the parent. I said, so when do you feel like you need to grow and be on your own? He said, man, about 28 or 30 maybe. I was like, seriously? And he's like, yeah, it's just because my parents supposed to help me, through the struggles. I said, well, you're not getting anywhere because you're not learning. At some point, you have to learn by yourself. Right. And I think this is an important part. And I know this is a different subject, kind of veering off, but she's a single mom. So I feel like, and I'm big on this, that the father figure has an absence, it has a part to do with it. Because I think, and this is where you probably be better at the statistics on that, the average household that has both families in there, I think they may have more of a chance to get out there and be more self-sufficient, and they go out there and try to do for themselves. Because I think with a single parent, the parent tend to keep that kid there themselves because they feel that need to, I need to do this because they don't have a dad, so I have to do both. So they tend to overprotect them. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and I think we all guilty. I was guilty of it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I wasn't like that. But the same token, with Marcus, my son, I was more hard on him. And this is where another subject is a difference because it's a guy and a girl. Right. Because Deanna, I gave her more of a pass And then Marcus,
Right.
I'm like, dude, you a man. You need to get out there
Right.
and learn how to survive. But Deion's like, all right, don't worry about it. I got you. I take care of it. So I think that's part of it too. A dynamic is how we do the difference between the girl and the boy. We tend to, the girl in a sense can stay home longer
Right.
because she's the girl. But the guy got to get out the house at 18
Right.
and be out there to provide. So I think that's a double standard, especially in the era we live in nowadays where everywhere we go is so many women that's doing men jobs. So you can't have that mentality, well, she's a girl, she can't do that. Because why? It's women that does everything. Where I work at, again, it's a manufacturing company, which you would think is more of a man's job, not anymore. I think it's actually more women than men, which is staggering to me. But they in sports,
Right.
everything. So that aspect, you can't kind of say the girl got to be home longer because
Right.
I had to protect her from the world because it's different now. Women in movies showing how
Right.
strong they are. So I think we just need to trust ourselves because one of my lady friends, again, she's a single parent. So she feels like she ain't ready to let her daughter leave because the world is so cruel
Right.
and she ain't ready for it. And like you said, I said, so when is she going to be ready for it? Because she got to fall down
Right.
and get hurt a couple of times to understand how to adjust to it. And I said, just be there and know that you there for them. You got their back. But they still got to fall on their own because I made numerous mistakes. When you went in the military, and
Yeah.
it was Jay and I, and he's like, Mark, you got to learn, man. You got to learn. Stop doing the same thing over and over. But he never handicapped me or enabled me. He's like, you need to figure it out. You did it, now figure out how to get out of that situation.
Right.
I think that helped me because the simple fact I had to figure a way out. I didn't call home because mom and dad was in Philly. It was just Jay. I didn't have no other people, so I had to figure it out. And I didn't fail. So I just think that we got to realize that our kids going to fail. It's part of life. You just got to be there when they fall to know you got them
Right.
for support. But I think that's the important part. But as a parent, we all going to feel like we got to
Right.
protect them. I think that's normal. I don't think that's
Right.
ever going to go away. That's just part of life. You have that, especially women. They more nurturers, so they
Right.
gonna always have that protective.
Right.
I gotta take care of them,
Right.
no matter what. Because my significant other, as you would say, she's 52 and her daughter's 38, and she still try to treat her like a little kid.
Right.
And they was living together, and I was like, "How come you're not letting her go out on her own?" She said, well, she's one of those not very independent. She's very dependent. She's not somebody that's go out and make it on her own. So I got to help her out. I said, you don't have to. You choose to because you feel like she won't survive on her
Right.
own. But I'm like, she's 38. At this point, she's going to have to learn life.
Right.
You can't do that your whole life with her because she's never going to be able to grow.
Right.
So she's starting to listen now. We getting arguments about it because she told me, well, who you think you are? You don't know me. I said, I'm just giving you advice at the end of the day because, my daughter lives with me.
Right.
She's 28, just turned 28. But she was in college. So I gave her that pass because she was going to school. So she was
Right.
doing something productive. So I told her, you got to get your stuff right. And then you're going to have to figure it out and then move and be on your own because you don't want to be living with your dad at 30 because, that's just too
Right.
long. So then that makes it look like you can't be on your own. So she's getting it.
Right.
So I believe that we got to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and let you talk. I kind of stole the show, but.
So let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Do you feel as though, I won't use the word fail, but do you feel as though you was responsible for her still being at home and not actually getting to that point to where she feels as though that she's independent enough to live on her own? And the reason why I asked that question is because, like I was saying, when I was in that class,
Right.
there's certain people I've spoken to that they feel as though we as Black people should take care of our children and kind of rear them to the point to where they're past 23 or 24. And actually based off of lifespan development, that's round of age that where people actually really, their brain is actually most fully developed. So from 18, 19, 20, it's still under development. So when you just throw them out there, you basically like throw them out in the water. You just throw them out there in the ocean just to hoping they survive. And they're not at that point to where the brain is actually fully developed. And that's why I said it's really important that we as parents actually rear them the right way. And I said this to 20 something years ago. I call it garbage in, garbage out. If the parents don't know how or know what to do, then the children's gonna come out the same way. It's just recycling.
That's a good point. That's part of it. That's in a sense, that's part of it, or the foundation of it is kids having kids. I know that's an old cliche, but you just put the nail on the head where you say if you haven't mentally matured at that age, if you having kids at 17, you raising a kid, you a kid, how you preparing them, you're not even prepared.
Right.
So I think that's part of the problem. And again, I'm not trying to throw anybody on the bus. I had my first kid at 21. So I was still young. I was still going to the clubs, doing things that I would do if I didn't have kids. And Jay used to always tell me, dude, you need to realize you got kids now. It's time for you to act like an adult and stop running around acting like you're 17. Because how you going to prepare them? So it took me a minute.
Right.
So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I had a kid and all of a sudden the light came on. It took some years for me to grasp that. So I think that's part of the problem of it as well, is kids having kids. And there's some kids at 17 that's mature as hell. It's very few, but there's some that can raise a kid.
Right.
Because they, like that old saying, they 15 going on 30.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's some kids that's like that. Because there's a young girl that works with me. She's 18. She acts like she's 45. Just mentally, she's just advanced more than your average 18-year-old. So I think it plays a part on the individual. But to answer your question about with Deanna, yeah, I did play a part. Because, again, I enabled her and I gave her that security to where you got me, you can lean on me, don't worry about it. And, again, I think that falls back on you want to protect your kids. I don't think it's wrong. I just think you got to have that balance on letting them fail. But, again, be there when they do fail, let them know they have that support. Because it's funny how we are in society, like you said, as we as black people. I did it, and I'm sure you did it when we raising our kids. Stop messing around. Act like you got some sense. So I think sometimes we try to make our kids be grown before they should be grown, if that makes sense. And giving them things to do. And I think that's good because we're trying to give them responsibility. But then again, that makes them lose out on the childhood that you should have because we try to make them grow too fast. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword or catch-22 where sometimes we make our kids to act grown, but then we want them to be kids at the same time. So to them, it's like, what the hell? When am I supposed to be a kid? When am I supposed to be grown? So I think that has a lot of dynamics to do with it. But yeah, with Deanna, that was my fault. And her mom told me, you need to stop doing that because you giving her the opportunity to feel like you have to do it. And then she's going to do that with everybody else. But then she did that with Keisha. So it's just funny how we as parents, we all, and I hate saying this, Mom used to always say that, all of y'all the same. I love y'all all the same. I have no favorites. But we all have one that we tend to cater to a little bit more than others. Is it ever going to be fixed? I don't know. I mean, I just think background has a lot to do with it, how you grew up. Some parents grew up where they didn't have anything, so they feel like they got to ravish and give everything to their kids because the concept is, well, I didn't have it when I was young, so I want them to have it. And I think that's where they set them up because they give them too much. And they not letting them have that diversity where, damn, you can have it, but you got to earn it. Right. And if you earn it, make you feel like, okay, I did something for it. Instead of I entitled because I'm your kid, you supposed to give it to me. So it's crazy, but that's something I don't think, like I said, it's going to be generation. Right. It's going to keep going. You know what I mean? So,
okay, so this is kind of what I asked you the other day. When I asked you as far as with, I think it was Deanna, do you feel as though, regardless the age, is it a certain age to where they should look at you as the man in their life until they actually have a man in their life? Meaning marriage.
Right, yeah.
Now, this is my perspective on it. And I had a conversation with somebody about this. And she was like looking at me crazy because I said, I get it, but this is where it's going to get tricky. My issue with that is, this kind of goes back to the podcast with the masculinity versus femininity. And a lot of women are at a point to whereas they can support themselves.
Right.
So this is where I kind of confused, because if you can support yourself and you're saying you're independent and you can do what a man can do, so why should I be that man in your life until you get that man in your life, meaning marriage? So if you're saying you're independent and you can do all this stuff, then why do you still look at me as that person or that man that should take care of you or do certain things for you until you get that man? That's, to me, that's confusing. It's like you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. So in one aspect, you're still holding on to, the old traditional, women are, I don't want to say weak, but women are not at the same level as a man, to whereas they have to depend on a man to support them, provide for them.
Right.
But now that's kind of flipped. Women can support and provide for themselves.
Right.
So why at age 20, 21 or whatever, and if she's not married, why should she come to you and say, okay, Dad, you need to do this. You need to take care of this for me?
Yeah. Okay, that's a really good question. It's funny you say that because, it's going to sound like I'm repeating myself in the sense I am, but again, it's the way we are evolving as people is just totally changing. And that's perfect how you said it, how I think part of the reason why women is like that is because they evolved because we're so many single women where they had to force to take on both roles. So I feel like equality is part of it. For years when we grew up, women weren't doing half the stuff that they do now. So that's rights they've been fighting for all these years. And now that they kind of caught up or almost passing, they feel like I'm just as dominant. I can do everything. So now that's the challenge come with your daughters. Like you were saying, that's good where, okay, you 21, you could be independent. You could take care of yourself. You could do what a man can do. So you shouldn't have to depend on dad no more because you can do it on yourself. Now, when we grew up, it was total opposite. The dad is the protector, so he take care of you. That's where the man comes and asks for your daughter hand in marriage because I'm taking your spot. I'm taking over. I'm going to be her provider, her protector. So I feel like that's where we at now, where that's the conflict. Because women's so more independent, it shouldn't be where as a guy taking care of his daughter at 28, 29, because she can't use that excuse anymore. Well, you the dad, you're supposed to take care of me, try to meet a guy that's going to take your place, because now women's doing everything that a guy can do, so you can't use that. You can be 18 and go out there and get a good job and be self-efficient. So that's where I believe that's where we at now, where the challenge is different, because where we at as people, society changed. It really changed if you really look at it. Perfect example, like you said, women does everything dudes can do. We teach our daughters that. Like, I don't know if you, but I always tell Keisha and Deanna, you can do the same thing a guy can do. Don't feel like you can't or you inferior. And I think we as parents, men, we instilled that in our daughters because we don't want our daughters being the ones with the male chauvinist where feel like you're a woman, you can't do that. Yeah. So we try to be the dads where don't ever feel like you can't. So we kind of created that monster in a sense too. So we can't say, in a sense of society, we all have to take accountability. Because I'm going to be real about it. I was that dad. I told Keisha and Deanna, you can do anything you want. Don't feel like because as a guy, you can't do it. So you can do it and be just as efficient. So that's where I contradicted myself. Because at the same time, I'm like, well, here, let me do this for you. So I kind of said to go out there and be on your own, but at the same time, I didn't allow her to. And I think that's part of the reason, we have what we have with some of the kids are growing up with that aspect is because, again, I blame, I'm probably going to get kickback on this. Parents, we can't always blame the kids and say it's their fault. Why are they like that? Well, you are what you are from what you created, So we do that, and we do that to our kids. They're only a product of what they grew up in. So I think we as parents have to look back, too, and say, how much accountability is this on me?
Right.
Because we all had that concept back in the day where the kids, the daughters mainly, are to be protected by the dad, and the man should come and ask her hand in marriage, and then you release her. That's what the whole marriage is. When you walk up there, and the dad walks into the,
Yeah.
So it's funny. That was a good point, but yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give you a different perspective.
Uh-huh.
You said, do you raise your daughter's like that. I
Right.
didn't.
Oh, okay.
And it's kind of like what I was
Yeah.
telling you about, we talked about last week. You got this somatic and asomatic.
Right.
You know, the asomatic is the person that look at himself as a person, a human being, not necessarily a male or female. So the ages from 0 to 7 is the time that we're all programmed.
Right.
And we were programmed to believe gender. That's where gender identity came from. So that's when people were told, okay, you're a male. This is what men do. This is what females do.
Right.
But because it wasn't taught the truth as far as we both possess masculinity and femininity, it has to be a balance. So when you're raising those children, you raise them with a balance. But when you raise that man, you're masculine. This is what a man is supposed to be. So that's where those traits was built, and an identity came, okay, this is what a man's supposed to do. And it's like I said during our last podcast, I believe it's awakening as far as women, as far as with their masculinity. And most men can't deal with it because now women are starting to realize, okay, I have masculine energy too, and I'm going to operate in that. But the disconnect is sometimes there's no balance.
Right.
So that ages from 0 to 7, if it was actually reared the right way as far as balance, both men and women have masculinity and femininity. As far as men, there's nothing wrong with showing your feminine side or working your feminine energy. So when you have those identities as far as male, female, then when they get older, 18, 19, you done reared them to the point to where it's, okay, as a female, this is how you're supposed to be. So that's how you protect them. Okay, well, you're a female, you're the weaker one, you're the softer one. So I got to make sure I take care of you and protect you because you're a woman. But women can work in that masculine energy and still be
A woman.
supportive and
Supportive.
independent.
Right. Yeah.
So the key is the balance. So, and like I was telling my friend, and she was like, well, you going to make your daughters do this and that? I said, I raised them to be an adult. Because being an adult is being responsible.
Right.
So if I'm a female, I can't do this. I'm a male, I can't do that. I'm not doing that because you're an adult. You're a responsible adult. So that's how you should operate and move. So that's why I don't believe that we should coddle, like you said, as far as if they're going to school, that's different because the way things are right now, like I said, is astronomical as far as the prices and stuff. So you kind of have to keep them inside until they get to a point.
Right.
But I still feel as though it's an agenda. I feel as though it's control because you can still control the population, you control people because you can pretty much know how they're going to move based off of the way things are. So.
Yeah, I mean, it just still falls back like you said. I mean, that's a good point again on how to identify, but I think, and we did this with the other subject the last time, I think it is important though to have some kind of identification so you can be able to understand one from the other. Because if we do have that, and I think that is part of it, is and raising them as an individual, as an adult, meaning you could do both. Where, and this, dare I say this, because we had this subject last week, but that's going to be on part 2 about, I think maybe nowadays is too much grasping of the other one, where males is grasping too much of the feminine side and women is grasping too much of the masculine. So now that's why you have more of the same with each other, because they doing too much with each other instead of saying, this is why I should be with a man is, well, I can do that with the same because that masculinity is in her and she has both. But like I said, I'm getting off subject. That's why I said I don't want to go too deep into that. But with the kids thing, again, like you were saying, it is important when they're young. I think you should be able to prepare them for the world, but at the same time, let them know that I help you,
Right.
but you still got to do it on your own. Like with the situation with Deanna, if you're doing something to better yourself, I think we all need help, regardless if it's your kids or not. As a friend or best friend or something, you see somebody struggling, you want to help them. So you want to help them get over that hump. So I think if your kids are at home at 18, 19, again, same thing. If you're doing something that's going to be productive, I feel it's okay to keep them there because you're only helping them out until they get to that point where they can go on their own. But again, then you enabling them, then that's just on you. That's your fault. Now you can't complain about it if you not doing anything to change that narrative. So I just think that's where we at. Again, will it change? It's going to take everybody looking at themselves and saying, you know what? I can't do this. I can't allow it. But I just feel like nowadays, because the way the world is, a lot of people probably going to do it even more because it's so crazy out there. So I think a lot of people going to want to protect their kids more because of that. Because I have a lady friend that I train, and her dad left her. She has 5 kids, so she's by herself. So she's like, I don't know what to do, and it's hard. So she went back home to stay with her mom because old boy left her by herself. So my point is, when you hit something in life, like with her, she's a single mom. She has no other alternative but to go back home. Right. And she's 28. So that's what I'm saying. I think every situation comes about too. I feel like as parents, that's where it's kind of our job. Dare I say that. Something happens that you want to take them back in to get them back on their feet. So different scenarios come up, situations comes up to where that person might have to go back home and get that help until they get back on their feet. But again, I always believe you got to give them a timeline. I think everything has to have a time on it. If you allow a person to just get comfortable and content and complacent, then that's your fault because you're not like myself. I did that with my daughter, and I fell back and let her get comfortable, and now it's like, well, you got to go. It's been a few years. Well, what you waiting for? So that's something I did to myself. So I'm going to be honest about that. So when I say that, I'm speaking to myself and all the listeners out there and follow, viewers. Look at yourself in the mirror and really ask yourself, am I doing everything the way I should? And we as parents are always going to feel like I can never do enough to help my kid. Am I doing enough to help my kids? So that's why I think it's something that's going to be a challenge, because it's a hard thing to deal with because you don't want to feel like you're letting down your kids and you're not helping them. You don't care. Because that was my biggest problem as a dad because I went with the mom. We separated. I felt also I was obligated because I wasn't around. So I felt like I needed to do more to try to prove to her that, see, I am a good dad. I do love you. So that's another scenario that comes into play is the homes where they're not together. That's what I was saying. When you're a single parent and you're growing up, and let's all be honest, there's some parents where the dad was, whatever reason, he left, and then the mom has that bitter animosity. So she's telling her kid different things or bad things about the dad. So now it's a challenge for him. So he feels like he got to prove himself. So the kids get older and she's like, well, I need help. So I need to stay with you. So he might feel obligated just because he felt like he left a void. So he feels like he has to do that just out of showing that he do care. So that's another scenario that comes up with us as parents sometimes with our kids. We feel like sometimes we got to prove to them that we do love you and I care about you. And that's part of it, is letting them stay at home. And we really know, no, you need to get your butt out there and start being productive adult in society. So we play that guilt trip to ourselves sometimes.
Interesting fact is like psychology has done studies and stuff like that as far as most parents or most people, it's almost factual, they raise their children based off of what they experienced as a child. So just like you spoke on earlier, as far as some parents will spoil their children, give them too much and don't hold that responsibility because when they came up, when they was growing up, they didn't have. So they kind of like, I want to make sure my child doesn't go without. So I'm going to make sure they have whatever it is that they want. And that's the interesting dynamic about it, is I don't believe that's something that can be controlled, is because it's based off of your childhood. And that's something that's just, it's never going to be, I guess, politically correct, or where you feel as though that a child's supposed to be raised a certain way, or it's wrong if they stay when they're 18 or whatever age, because a lot of it is just based off of what they experienced as a child growing up. And that's something you can't control. So for me, the important thing is now with people that have the knowledge is to teach people what it is that we should be doing as parents as far as like raising them. The most important ages from 0 to 7. That is the most important. So if you missed the mark during that point, then you're playing catch up from that point forward. So I think it's an individual thing. I don't think it's a right or wrong answer because it's just based off of, that person's experience.
Right. Yeah. That's what I said. It's so many dynamics.
Yeah.
Because the other thing too, you could look at it as I'm gonna be transparent, like with my situation. Like my daughters, like I said, the mom and I, we broke up after they was 4 or 5, and she kept both of them. So it was animosity there. So it was a battle, like trying to be co-parenting to where I was bad mouthed and I was this way, I was that, I don't care. So it was always a challenge for me to come around and raise them because I was already up against the wall on just the version of what the mom was giving them. So I felt obligated to give them everything when they wanted it. I think they picked up on that.
Right.
So they like, well, Dad, I need this and I need that. But Mom said, so I felt more obligated because I felt like I wasn't doing a good job as a dad. So I had to play that role where I'm going to prove to you that I am a good dad. So I think, again, I said that earlier, that's where that plays a part. And even with my son, he grew up, I'm going to say this, a mama's boy. He was with his mom, so he's more of a mom, so he did with his mom. So we don't have that deep relationship as we should as a father and son. So I try to teach him things about life, and then it's contradicted by the way she teaches him. So I think that plays a part too. So he stayed with his mom. So I think he was like 20. Then he finally moved out on his own. Right. And I used to tell her, you need to let him be on his own, because she'll call me, well, Marcus is doing this, Marcus is doing that. You need to come over here and tell him. I said, well, you got him with you. You got to be that bad cop, so to speak, and let him know that, you can't have everything you want. But because she grew up with nothing, she was like, well, he going to have everything I didn't have. And he needs to know that, he can get and give him an opportunity to want all the finer things in life. And I was the opposite. I'm like, no, dude, you need to work for it and understand this is how life really is. When you want something, you got to put in the work. And it's not just given to you, because when you get out there and you realize it ain't handed to you, you're going to be all butthurt. So that was where it was hard, because the dynamic of the different parents on the point of view on how we grew up. Mom, dad took care of us. They spoiled us. We thought we was rich growing up. Yeah. But they gave us that balance. So that's what I was trying to give, to my kids, that balance. You can have nice things. We can give you nice things. But again, you got to work for it. I don't know if you remember when we was younger, Dad told us, if you want to make your money, you got to go out there. And I don't know if you did it, or it was me, but our first job was the paper route. Yeah. Remember? I had to go out there and deliver the newspapers in the snow. So that's when I realized that, damn, it sucks, but this is my own money. I don't have to ask nobody else for it. This is what I can do with my money that I want. So I'm going in circles, but again, I think this kind of comes back to that full circle. Is we just got to start having our kids work a little bit harder and understand that, hey, you here, but you're going to work for it. It's not just free lunch. You're not just going to be here because you're the kid. So to answer the question on the whole subject in hand, is there time to when we should release our kids? Yeah, I think 18 ideally is the right age. Again, it's the government. This is their rule, so to speak. 18, you're old enough to go in the military and fight for your country. But you're not old enough to go drink. I always thought that was retarded, how they have that. Right. Oh, you can't smoke, but you can go fight for your country at 18, but you can't smoke, you can't drink till you're 21. And I think the reason why I'm using that example, because we was kind of brainwashed or manipulated to raise our kids that way. Why is 18 the age where everything is legal? You're an adult at 18, technically you're an adult. Or 21, you can legally do what you want. So I think that's, like you said, about the agenda is the control, which you do need control. But I think that played a big part on how we raise our kids. Subliminally, it was a message that we can't do anything until you're 18. You 18, you grown. For some reason, that's the cardinal rule. You 18, you a grown young adult. You can go and deal with life. But you just made the great point early in the podcast where your mind mentally matures at 21 and 22. Right. But we say 18 is the age where you consider a young adult. When in reality you're not, because you still haven't fully developed mentally, at 21. So I think that plays a part too. I think I've watched Japanese because I work for a company where it's Japanese owned, and I watch their culture, and they don't live by that rule. They teach their kids at 7 because your mind as a kid is like a sponge. You know this, that they absorb everything. They smart.
Right.
My little grandson Hakeem, that damn boy is 2 years old. And it's funny how he picks up the cell phone and can call you. I'm not lying. Because Marco was like, his grandma said, watch this, Mark. I was like, what? She said, Hakeem, call your grandpa. And I'm like, he ain't going to do this. This boy don't know. I'm not lying. He picked up the phone and dialed me. He ain't say hello, but he said hello in baby talk. It's like, are you serious? He knows when his mom did a FaceTime. Mom. So that tells you that you can't we can't teach kids that they're not older or smart enough because they smarter than you, really. They just don't know how to articulate it because they can't talk. Because I watched this boy running around. I was like, take this to the trash. Homeboy, take it, throw it in the trash.
Right.
He pointed at his diaper bag, and I'm looking like, what? And he gets mad at me because I don't know what he's talking about. He knows in his mind what he's talking about. I need my bag, dude. Come change me. So I said, oh, you need your diaper bag. So the point I'm trying to make is, if we teach our kids that at a young age that, yeah, you're smart enough to do this, you can be efficient. When you get older, they will. Because Japanese, I think their age is 14. They already out in the workforce and doing things because they already was raised at that age. But we look at that culture and it's like, that's too young. Why are they making them adults that early? But that mind is something crazy. You know this because you study psychology. So I think if we start doing that with our kids, again, I think balance is going to be the key. I'm not saying just make them adult at 14.
Right.
Because then we always act like, as parents, you just too damn grown for your age. But again, who fault is that? If we give them that be an adult, then we give them be a kid. So I think it could be good if we could do both, if that makes sense. Will it ever happen? Probably not. But I think that would be a good way. Is it a perfect kid? No. I think we all think our kids is perfect. But I think that would help change that dynamic as far as when we complain, because at work, that's the subject. Man, my damn kid today. And we all be in a huddle, be talking about that. And I just think we all need to sit back and be like, well, is it their fault? Was it? And I'm not saying we should blame ourselves, but just take more of a self-evaluation.
Right.
Just
Accountability.
say, well, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, accountability on why they acting like that. Because I think cause and effect. Right? So.
Okay, so it's one thing I want to touch on. You was saying as far as like when we're 18, why do we believe that they should be grown or old enough to do it? You basically answered the question.
Right. Well, it was a rhetorical question.
You spoke on it.
Yeah.
As far as the brain is very unique in a sense that it can be manipulated to that point.
Right.
But it's like I was saying earlier, it just goes back to we raise our children based off of what we experienced when we was growing up. And like you said, is when you was talking about the experience you had with your kid's mom and how she was saying certain things, so you felt obligated to not be as a disciplinary, so you kind of let them get away with certain things. Right. So I like I said before, it's just something that I can't believe that we cannot control. As much as psychology plays a part into it, you can't control it. Like it's the whole nature versus nurture. So it's just something that's just going to be a work in progress. I don't see it changing. I really don't. I hate to say that, but I don't see it. Because just based off of how we grew up is going to, So you hit that important fact as far as with your grandchildren. So being that you can still kind of control that in a sense that when you have them, you
definitely.
Can, what I'm saying? You can raise them to that point and teach them and stuff. So he won't be that way when he gets to be 18 or 19 and so forth. And you're going to pass that knowledge down to, your daughters and stuff. So.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. But that's a dynamic too. Is again, we touched on that earlier about kids raising kids. I think that's a big part. Even though that terminology, I just spoke on that, why it got to be called kids, because the 18-year-old that works with me, I was like, "Oh, you just a baby." He's like, "I'm 18. I'm grown." I was like, "What makes you grown? Because you 18?"
Right.
And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "No, you still got to learn life. You got to go through life." But he has, well, she just got pregnant, and she's like, "Oh my God, I don't know what to do. I wasn't even ready for this. I don't even know how to, do things myself." And I said, "Well, it's going to be a work in progress. That's one thing. There's no book on how to be a parent." And I was watching this movie. I was telling you earlier, I call it a chick flick. Yeah, sorry, ladies, but it was called Bad Moms. And it was actually a funny movie, but I love the concept that it tells you how there's no book on being a parent. This is more about the moms, though, of course. But she had a part in there because she was trying to be the PTA lady, the lead or whatever you call it. I'm trying to find the right word for it. But anyway, she got up there on stage and she was saying, "Yeah, I am a bad mom. I do this wrong, and I do that." And next thing you know, everybody's standing up saying the things they done as a parent. So I just think that we as parents, like you said, there's no right way, no wrong way. We're going to go based off experience, how we grew up. And we do that on how we raise our kids. And I think that's the way it is nowadays. Every household is going to be different.
Right.
And you hit the nail on the head. It's based off of what they went through in life. Or basically how they view society. Some people see the world as it's okay. I have a friend where she let her kid do everything like she was already grown. She's 15. So I'm just like, really? You ain't telling her it's too early for that?
Right.
And she's like, no, she's going to do it anyway when she get older. So she smokes with her, drinks with her. And Jay did that. And I remember one time, I think he was already in the military. But he said, "Yo, man, if you want your daughters to drink, it's better than drinking with family because they're going to take care of you." So he got Keisha a glass, Deanna a glass, and we all took shots. And I remember they went home and told their mom, "Oh, my God, you a bad dad. Who does that? How would you let your brother do that?" And he said, "Well, that's something they're going to do anyway with their friends. So at least they doing it with somebody responsible to show that, hey, if you're going to do with people that's going to protect you and take care of you." So that part, I'm using that as an example on giving them a life experience.
Right.
You're giving them that early, but you're telling them, look, this is a time you're going to drink, but it's only going to be with family. So now, as they older, Deanna used to like to drink, but now she's starting to calm down. So her mom always tells me, "See, that's because what you did when they was young." I said, that has nothing to do with it because we was drinking at a young age, and I don't drink as much now. So I think it go either way. So you're always going to give that opportunity for that kid, but it's an option. My thing is I always tell people life is about choices. It's always going to be a bad choice or a good choice. And I think that goes to anything in life, even with your kids. If you give them a choice, an option, a lot of people don't agree with that analogy or concept because they like, you give them a choice, they're always going to choose the bad. Well, again, you give them that diversity to go good or bad. Instead of just giving them one, because now they're going to be curious about the other one because they don't know. But if you give them that option, that choice, you're going to have that to fall back on, like, well, I did choose that. And I feel like that's the choices sometimes we should do with our kids. Give them more life scenario choices to make, So.
But this is an interesting fact. As far as like with mine, and this is where I think I made I won't say a mistake. But when they was younger, I think they was like maybe 9, 10 years old. And I'm a firm believer in the father is supposed to be the teacher and everything. And so whenever I got something at school, I would always bring it home. I would put it up on the big screen TV and I would teach them. Same thing when I was, in church, I would do Bible study and stuff. So I felt as though it was important as the father that's what a father is supposed to do. And then when I got divorced, I wasn't able to give them that guidance and that mentorship. And I can actually see the results of it because when I was teaching them at that point, they weren't know what I was teaching them. They just know dad was teaching us something and was spending time with them. And it's important from like 12, 13 up until, 18, 19 that you continue with that. So I just find that interesting that the dynamic as far as I know 0 to 7 is the ages you're supposed to teach them and stuff like that. But then after that, they didn't have it. So they're doing good, but I can still see areas to whereas if I was there, it would be a big difference.
No, I mean, I get you on that, but do you No, and I'm not saying that that's not true, but what if you was there and it still didn't plan out like that?
This
So I
may
think,
sound arrogant, but
Yeah.
I just feel as though
yeah,
they wouldn't
right.
because they are so receptive,
Mm-hmm.
and because they was receiving everything I was giving them at the time.
Right.
I believe they would have, received it and went on.
Mm-hmm.
I really do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's consistency. What that is.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying on that aspect. Like if you did it throughout,
Right.
they've in a sense muscle memory is going to remember it.
Exactly.
It's going to be a non-conscious movement
Right.
because they don't even think about it because it's so redundant. But that goes back to the other saying that what was I going to say? Damn, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. You were saying it, but I was thinking it as you was talking about it. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna say this when he get done. But you was going so long. No, I was just joking. I was just joking. No, but it was about consistency on the kids and giving them that throughout, right? But also when you do that, the consistency, I think. Oh, you were saying about how they didn't do it because you wasn't there afterwards. But that's what I was saying about the choice thing. Even though you give them everything and you're doing everything right, and this is one thing that I learned too. Mom used to say that, and Dad used to always say this. Sometimes the influence of others,
Right.
as much as we as parents tell our kids, you got that one knucklehead friend
Right.
that they idolize and look up to that's going to counter that, and that's where the challenge comes
Right.
in. Is you could do everything right, and then your friends is the ones that's because it's going to influence them more.
Right.
So you as a parent doing everything perfect. That's why I asked you, what if they didn't,
Right.
even though you was there? Because I think that's a scenario. And then the other one was the best friends. Sometimes we as parents try to be their friend too much. And that's where the downfall is. Because you get a thin line, you could be their friend. But if you want, and I have some lady friends where I met one time, went in the club, this is back, we was in our 20s, and she was clubbing with her daughter. And I was like,
How
what
old
the
is the
hell?
daughter?
Huh?
How old is the daughter?
The daughter was like 28, the mom was 40-something. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you can't go out with your kids. But they was like, bitch, and this, like, talking like
that's
girlfriends. And I'm just like, that's your mom? She's like, Dad, that's my B, and we do this and that. So I was just like, well, when do you have time to be a mom? Because she'll
Right.
tell me, man, that damn girl just the hardest person to talk to. And I said, it's because you are her friend. She don't see you as a mom. So
Right.
you're trying to be that parent, and it's too late because
Yeah.
you was a friend from beginning to end. So she never understood the authority part of it. So I think that's something I was thinking about earlier. Is I think that plays a part. Is we sometimes try to be too much friends with our kids. Is again, we can, but you gotta be able to know when to and when not to. Because I think that's where a lot of our kids tend to not take, not even say take life serious, but take what we need as a responsibility serious because they know my mom got me. That's my girl. My dad got me. That's my dude. So
Right.
I think, again, we can do that, but just be careful because Keisha and I will always pop off at me a certain way. And I'm like, really, who you think you talking to? And they're like, well, mom's like, because they was so close to their
Right.
mom like that, they thought it was okay. So when they come to me, I'm the opposite. I'm more of the disciplinary.
Right.
So they felt like I wasn't cool. I wasn't the cool dad because I was not doing the things that they was doing with their mom. So I think, excuse me, that plays a part as well. Is that too much of a friend and not enough of a parent? I think again you could do both, but you just gotta have that good
Right.
balance. You
Yeah.
know?
You got to have boundaries.
Yeah, boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one more thing. I'm sorry. Dad used to always say this. You will know how you raise your kid. And again, it ain't 100% I'm saying this. But as they get older, that's going to reflect on the parenting, on how you raise them, how they are in society, on how they act. Like I told you, like with your kids, we all hard on our kids. We want the best, but I like they follow a lot of what you did. I see them in you. When that tells me that you did your good part as a parenting. Now, again, they're not going to do everything right. I'm not going to sit here and expect my kid to be in suit everything to a T. There's always one that's going to do everything, but then it's 2 or 3 that may not. But my point is, you would know as they get older on how, as a parent, if it worked or not. And Dad used to always tell me that.
I don't know. I agree to disagree, and this may sound contradictory from what I said before. I think to a certain point, when they're maybe teenagers,
Right.
you can say, okay, I can see how you raise your children because you still have that
Yeah.
that I don't say ownership, but you still have that influence over them. But once they hit 23 and up, like I said, that's when the brain is fully developed,
Right.
and they're building their character and all that at that age. So
Right.
once they get past 25, they should no longer be a reflection. They're still going to be your reflection, but they shouldn't be like, okay, I can definitely see that's your child, because they should have developed their
Right.
own being as far
yeah.
as who they are. So that I don't agree with that. To me, that's a disservice, because then you're not ascending the way you're supposed to, because
Right.
then you're just a product of that person.
Right.
So at some point we have to branch off
Yeah.
and become
Be
who
their
we're
own
supposed
self?
to be.
Yeah. So you will never be that parent. Be like, see, she like me. She get
No.
that from me. So you
Like
ain't
that,
gonna-
I'm saying now, because
Yeah.
they're still in the
Right.
early stages of
Yeah, but I
No,
mean that's what
yeah.
I'm saying. When they older, like 30.
like our age, they
Yeah.
should not. I should not look at Marcus and be like, "You just like your dad."
Well, see, that's funny
I can
because
see your dad in you.
I'm gonna say this right now. And I think when I say it, you kind of even like really. I always say you remind me of mom, and a little bit of dad. And the reason why I say that is because you love to travel.
Oh,
You
well,
see what I'm
that's
saying?
yeah,
So,
that's
it's
different.
not
though.
living like mom, but what I
Right.
mean is you're responsible. You're a planner.
Yeah,
Mom was a planner. I'm
Yeah.
more like dad. I'm not saying dad was irresponsible. He just was go by the day.
yeah,
Live for the moment. There is no tomorrow. You remember that
Right,
was dad
yeah.
saying, "There ain't tomorrow. I do it right now." That's kind of how I am. But you are, but you still like we need to have plans,
Mm-hmm.
have it set, have some kind of destination where you're trying to get to, not just wing in the moment. So that's what I'm saying when I say you get that from mom. As parents or growing up in a family, that's all you're going to relate it to is because we grew up together. So you may not see it in that light, but that's what I mean when I say that. Is you responsible? You love to travel. You done school. Mom was me as a Renaissance woman. She done so many
Right.
different things. What are you doing? So
Right.
many different things. So that's what I mean when I say that.
Right.
Is sometimes you can see how the kid
Okay.
picked up from you and learned things. Not saying you're gonna be just like mom,
Right.
but you picked up that aspect. Like me, I'm more like dad. Again, I'm more in the moment. Ain't though tomorrow. I'm gonna do what we're gonna do today. Jay always said you so kind hearted.
Right.
Everybody's your friend. You
Yeah.
gotta learn not to trust everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Turn the other cheek. Kind of that was always me. So that's where I say, as parents, that's what I
Right.
mean when I say you can pick it up. But we still grew up decent. We ain't murderers. We ain't drug addicts. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
You can look at your kid and say we
Okay.
did good. They ain't strung out on drugs. This is my
Right.
cardinal rule. If you ain't on drugs, you're not alcoholic, you ain't out here harming nobody, not stealing,
Right.
you did your part as a parent. Because the rest of the stuff, again, that's part of life. And you hit the nail on the head. Everybody develops their own personality, their
Right.
own character. I'm gonna use the fight or flight rule.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody's stuck in a corner, Dad used to always say this: you're gonna learn the character of that person when adversity hits them, animosity hits them. How you gonna handle it? And the same with your kids. Some kids know how to handle things one way. Your next one, you're looking at like, how the hell? Where did she get that from? I didn't raise her like that. So that part I feel like is part of the character that's going to develop, regardless what you do
Right.
as a parent. You said it. Everybody's going to develop their own individuality, regardless. You could be the best parent in the world, and your kid grew up like people be like, "That's your kid." Be like, "Yeah, I ain't raised him like that." But it's just this
Right.
life choices, life experiences. That's what they just going to develop, you know. Because like you and I, we twins, and people say all the time, "Why you so different, Matt? So reserved, not reserved, but more together, a planner, and you just out here in the wind." I said, "Well, Matt was military, so you had that structure." You see what I'm saying? So even though we twins, we had different lifestyles. So that's why I use that even with your kids. Different lifestyle creates who you are.
Right.
You know, I don't care who you are. Whatever you go through, we all gonna handle it a different way. And we could grow up in the same household,
Right.
and you look at your cousin or your sister and be like, "How the fuck is she like that?" And we had the same parents. You know, it's just I feel like that part of it is just, you know, learning who you are and just taking that route. So in a nutshell, we could do everything as a parent, but at the same time, you could just hope.
Right.
And I hate using that word hope, but just trust yourself that you did good and that they're gonna turn out right. So sometimes it doesn't hurt to kind of help your kids to come back to full
Right.
circle. It depends on the situations. I'm gonna put it like that.
Okay. All right. I received everything you said. We can go on and on.
Yeah, no,
about this. So I think just to pull it all in a nutshell, as I said before, there's no perfect solution to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's individually based, and it's the famous natures versus nurture. So with that being said, I believe it was a good show. I
Yes.
enjoyed it. Make sure you guys tune in. Again, beautiful people, what you think becomes your thought becomes. And I don't forgot what
I
my
don't know.
host
You say it all the time. Well, I'm gonna do mine, y'all. I say this in the fitness world because you know I'm a trainer, but this aspect of this analogy you can use in everyday life. STS, guys. I always say this. STS. Stay focused, trust your process, and most of all, stay consistent. So
Okay.
I appreciate y'all.
That's it. A thought becomes a belief, and a belief becomes manifestation.
There you go.
Peace.
All right.
They wonders of the world, they monsters. The twin Tompkins brought our only on. They travel the world stopping at the break of dawn daily. The iron's pumping. I bring you no brothers, about to bring you their life. Look no further, everybody, cause it's day and night. Let's go!